Picking up on page 89, let's add some text. I will make the Hawaii layer visible, and I will deselect all layers so my new type layer will be at the top. Select and deselect layers. Let's go get the horizontal type tool, and we'll open the character panel, window character, and set the settings that are on page 89 of the book. I've got Birch Standard for my font. I don't have a choice of regular as they do in the book. Don't worry about that. We'll leave the font style. It will be regular. Set 36 point as my size. Come down here and set the tracking value, the VA I typed in 250. We'll come here and click on the full bold button. Choose the all caps button as well, the TT. I'll come and pick a color. Book says I'm grassy green, so I'll come in my green area and choose, that's pretty grassy. I'll also come down and make sure my anti-alias, the smoothing of the edges of the text, is set to crisp. Now let's go and type. Click down here below the H in Hawaii and type in Island Paradise. Note that since we had the all caps set, even if I don't type in all caps, the text comes out all caps. I'll commit my current edits. And this text isn't exactly where I want, but I'll hit the move tool and go on and move it over a little bit. I'll click and drag. Next, let's go in and add a gradient to the Hawaii layer. Close the character panel. Come on over here and right click on the thumbnail, not the layer, but the thumbnail for the Hawaii layer, and choose Select Pixels. See the selection around the pixels that are active on that layer. Let's go to the Tools panel and click the Gradient tool. Set up our colors. So we'll go down here and pick a color for a gradient. We'll go to the foreground color. Find yourself an orange color that you like. Hit OK on that. And we'll make sure our background color is still white. Come up here in the options bar, make sure we have linear gradient chosen. And we'll come in here to our gradient editor and choose the first one, which is foreground to background. If you prefer, you can change the view of these gradients by coming to the gear icon here, coming down and choosing small list. That'll give you the gradient icon and the name of the gradient. Sometimes that's better. So we have foreground to background chosen. We'll click outside here to accept it. And now let's go and use the gradient. We'll drag with the gradient tool, kind of from the bottom to the top of the letters. If you want to be sure you have a straight gradient, you can hold the Shift key down to constrain that draw. And it doesn't matter if you draw outside of the letters because you can only work within the selection. Then let's deselect Control D and save Control S. Now we'll use a layer style to add a drop shadow to the Island Paradise layer. Let's select that Island Paradise layer, come over here and do Layer, Layer Style, and Drop Shadow. That opens up the Layer Style dialog box. The drop shadow is selected. That means it's going to be applied. And here are the settings. I'll match the settings described in the book. And those settings are blend mode multiply, opacity 75%, angle of 78 degrees. The distance the drop shadow is from the original text, 5px. The spread, how diffuse or soft the shadow is at 30%, and the size of the shadow at 10px. I will click OK to close that layer style dialog box and apply that. And here you see the drop shadow. Now let's put that same drop shadow on the Hawaii layer. I'll come over here to the Layers panel, and I'll hold down the Alt key or Option key on the Mac. Click and drag those down on top of Hawaii. And now Hawaii has the same drop shadow. I dragged the actual effects. You could also drag the little FX icon here onto that Hawaii layer for the same effect. Let's use the layers styles again. This time we'll apply a green line around the word Hawaii. So I'll select the Hawaii layer. You come down and add a layer style down in the Layers panel. And I'll choose Stroke. That opens up the Layer Style dialog box again. And now notice both Stroke and Drop Shadow are checkmarked, indicating that there are two styles applied to this layer. Let's go and set up the settings that they have in the book for stroke. So I have a size of 4px. My position I changed to outside. The blend mode is normal. The opacity is 100%. I'll come down here and I'll choose a color. Click on that. If you wanted to, you could go down and select the same green you used before. I'll choose a different but perhaps complementary green. Come in here and choose something like that. Hit OK. And hit OK again to apply the style. We can also apply layer styles to non-type layers. We can go to the flower layer. Click on the flower layer, just select it. And I'll do layer, layer style, and drop shadow. You could also have gone down here to the layer effects and chosen drop shadow there. Let's go into our structure area and set the appropriate settings as described in the book. So I've got blend mode, multiply, opacity 60%, distance of 13px, and a spread of 9%. Use global light is selected, and I'm set to multiply. Rather than close this, let's go add a second layer style. This one will be the satin style. Come over here and click on satin. Let me point out there's a difference between clicking the check mark, which would apply the style with the default settings, or clicking on the word satin, which will apply the style but then take you to the settings so you can set what you want. So for fuchsia, we chose a purple color, opacity 20%, distance 22px, and OK. That gave us kind of a satiny look on the flower. If you want to see what that looks like without the effect, you can come over here to the eye next to satin, turn it off. You can see there's without it, and there it is with. Same thing for drop shadow before and after. So you can turn on or off any of your layer effects individually or all at once by clicking on the eye icons next to them. Let's do a file save.